Just while these people are getting seated, I came in and I noticed the sign over on the side with the red circle with a line through it. You saw that? I thought it was a curling rock. I thought, no curling. Okay, so no curling in this space this morning. I thought it was funny. It's called thinking outside the box. And that's what we're called to do. The schedule today is going to be a combination of presentations by post-secondary institutions, short presentations, opportunity to ask them some questions, and also some presentations by people who were homeschooled and who are entrepreneurs and leaders in their community and in the world, in fact. So leaders and entrepreneurs, I have to be able to say it before we can talk about it, right? That's our theme, and maybe some of you came here because you know that you're a leader, you know that you're entrepreneurial, or maybe you came here thinking, well, that's not me, but there will be other things that I'll get out of this day. And actually, it's kind of a trick title because everyone is a leader, and in some way, everyone is an entrepreneur. Allow me to illustrate. Leaders. Leaders are called and equipped to lead. So tell me, who is not a leader? Every father is a leader. Every mother is a leader. Every older brother or sister leads those younger. Uncles, aunts, cousins. In fact, anybody who goes ahead is a leader. And no matter where we're at, we're going ahead of someone else. You know, and it causes me to reflect on witnessing my father and my mother go ahead of me into the next life. And they're, by a good death, they're leading me there too. So we're always leading whether we like it or not. So what is the quality of our leadership? Are we leading others towards a greater fulfillment of themselves? Or are we in some ways neglecting the very gift that we've been given to lead? So maybe we can reflect on that a little bit as the day goes too. Are there little clues here as to how the Lord is calling me to lead? And everybody's an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is essentially a creative person. Entrepreneurs, by nature, are creative. Well, we are all creative. We've all been given a capacity, in fact, a deep desire to participate in what our Lord has done. The first thing we know about God was He created. And He immediately invites mankind to participate in that as co-creators, if you will. Not equal to God, obviously, but participating in His creativity. Those who believe in Him are more excited, are more stimulated, more joyful entrepreneurs, because He breathes into them a life and a desire to do creative things. Through this participation, He has always moved society forward. You know, we've got capacities today that we didn't have 50 years ago. And they had capacities that they didn't have 150 years before that, and so on. Our culture keeps growing and being refined by the creative work of God through His entrepreneurs. People who see something that's needed, seeing something that isn't there, and creating it, making it happen. And if we're prepared, you know, as St. Peter says, always be prepared to answer, to express what you know. So if we're prepared, if we develop our mind, our heart, our soul, so that we're prepared when that moment, that creative moment arrives where we have the capacity to do something that isn't being done, or something that's needed, a need that isn't being filled, that we'll be prepared to respond to it. Oh, of course, nervously, but prepared because we've developed the capacities we've been given. Now, there are a lot of secular entrepreneurs. My son was telling me about Joss Whedon. This is the guy who directed and wrote Avengers, the movie. Whether you like Avengers or not is beside the point. This is a couple of years ago, right? And they sent him home for 2 weeks because he was working too hard. So in those 2 weeks, he produced Much Ado About Nothing, filmed that, and that just came out. Now, I'm not talking about the quality of the film, but you couldn't keep him down. You sent him home to rest, and he created another movie in the 2 weeks. So that kind of capacity and desire to continue to create, to be actively involved, is kind of inherent in an entrepreneur. So as homeschoolers, you are all leaders, big leaders or little leaders. You're all entrepreneurs, big E or small e, but all, big entrepreneurs take big risks usually. They often lose big money. They might make a lot of money too, but that's not what motivates them. It's being creative. So learn all you can while you're here today. Let's also learn all we can in our homeschool journey. Don't waste schola. It's the Latin word that is the root of school. People don't like the word school, but it actually means leisure devoted to learning. You've heard me say this before. Don't waste the leisure that you have at this point in your life, these last few years at home, where you don't have to have a full-time job, and you don't have to be raising a family, and you don't have to have all these other responsibilities. You've got leisure, and this leisure is designed into your life so that you can learn and prepare, as I said before. So learn using literature, using dialogue. Dialogue is a great way to learn because we think differently when we have to talk to somebody about something. It trains the way we think through the minds of the person that's hearing us and hearing things through the mind of somebody else. Today here, look at all the options. Speak to all the schools, all the post-secondary institutions that are here, whether you're interested in them or not. Challenge yourself to speak to each one of them because you might be surprised. You never know which rock you're going to turn over and go, oh my goodness, I never would have thought to look there. Pray for direction. Listen to your parents. Your parents have got wisdom, but your parents aren't you. Your parents' job is to help you form yourself, get ready, and then to release you. That's what they're here for, is to release you to your own capacities, your own gifts, your own propensity for leadership and for entrepreneurship. And so you're at the point where you are taking those steps to that independence. Use the wisdom that you can, but you need to grow in your independence. The world, I'll leave you with this. This is a lovely thought that Marlene gave me yesterday. The world tempts. The world tempts us by enticing us with prosperity or frightening us with adversity. Enticing us with prosperity. How many people have we heard who are only interested in a particular job or career according to how much money it'll make them, as opposed to being drawn to something because it's really what we're designed for? And how many times do the difficulties cause us so much fear that we're immobilized and don't want to move forward, or even the perception of the difficulties freezes us? So the world tempts by enticing us with prosperity, by frightening us with adversity. So, don't be frightened and don't be enticed. We're going to go into the first session. I would invite, I think we'll have all our presenters come up to the front and it'll make it an easier flow. So Prairie Bible Institute, we've got Gail here. Our Lady Seat of Wisdom Academy, Maria. Trinity Western, Emily. and King's University College, Lindsay. If you could just come up to the front and have a seat, that would be great. Well, 2 out of 4 is 50% anyway. All right. Well, then you're going to have more than 5 minutes each. You can probably speak for 10 minutes if you want. What we'll do is we'll have a short presentation from each of the institutions, and then we'll take some Q&A, some questions. So just think of your questions, hang on to them, maybe jot them down, so that at the end of this short session, we can have some questions. And then once we're done with this, we'll go on to Eric Spoth, who's a filmmaker, but I'll tell you more about him when that time comes. So, Gail, come on up.
Pretty short, so. Good morning, everyone. Is it too early or surviving? It's nice that we don't have snow today, so at least we can be thankful for that. It's still quite warm out, and so it's easier to get up, I think, when you don't have a card to scrape off. Like he shared, I'm Gail from Prairie Bible Institute, and on behalf of all of the post-secondary institutions represented here today, just thank you for having us. It means a lot that people from all types of education, home learning, and even if they go to a public school are interested in hearing what we have to offer. And so, like he just shared, take advantage of this time and don't shy away from talking to each one of us. Even if you just want to have a personal conversation, that's fine too. Like he said, you can learn a lot through dialogue, and we find that as well. So first of all, thank you. Once again, I'm representing Prairie Bible Institute. We're in Three Hills, Alberta. Does anyone know where Three Hills is? Yay! We kind of form the triangle between Calgary and Red Deer, so we're further east on Highway 21. And Three Hills, Alberta has about a population of 3,000. We're a nice small town. I'm Calgarian, so I liked going there. It was a nice change of scenery. And now we've just been invited to share about how our school relates to the topic of leadership and entrepreneurship. So as I was preparing my notes for this, I was thinking, as you guys are finishing off your high school at home and preparing for college or other opportunities, how can you have a vision for your leadership and giftings for the future and where God might be taking you? And I'm really happy to share that Prairie's vision for leadership is linked to a global purpose, a kingdom purpose. Prairie is a leading Christian post-secondary institution that integrates applied education, biblical literacy, and spiritual formation in order to equip students to meet the world's greatest needs. That's kind of our phrase right now, is meeting the greatest needs of the world. So we believe that students and graduates who are attending Prairie are impacting society, church, and mission with the gospel. So no matter what career you have, you're doing it for a greater purpose. Leadership is meant for something bigger than ourselves, and it's not to be hoarded. And so we have various avenues at Prairie where people can have their passions discovered. Maybe they have no idea what they want to do or where they want to go, or maybe they need some of their skills fostered and they already know what direction they're heading in. So we want an education at Prairie to really equip someone to be trained to go out, whether that's locally or globally. So students will have their leadership skills fostered at Prairie by receiving, like I mentioned before, a biblical foundation. So that's in and out of the classroom. We're Bible-centered and Christ-centered. There's also various opportunities to lead on campus. So we have avenues, whether that's the student council or leading a small group of women or men, even teaching internships in the classroom, worship teams, that sort of thing, which earns students the opportunity to experience their leadership, be challenged in new ways, maybe with something like public speaking or whatever makes you nervous. All of this, like I mentioned, is so that students will be equipped to lead in ways that will contribute to kingdom purposes. And so I just want to share the testimony of 4 students who I know personally who attended Prairie for different programs and how they maybe discovered their leadership and passions and what they're being used for now. The first is Dustin. He graduated from our digital media program, which is a 2-year diploma studying design in the arts. So they study web, videography, photography, and overall design. And so Dustin came in thinking, oh, maybe Bible college, I have no idea what I want to do. He took the 2-year diploma, ended up having a knack for videography. He fell in love with it. It's his passion now. He traveled to India for 2 weeks where he did a filming of a documentary there, and now he's currently filming on Prairie's campus something called Discipleship Essentials, which is a lot of discipleship tools used for people all over the globe. So in 50 different languages he's filming it, and the videos will be sent through little phone chips across the world so that people in difficult to access nations, things where persecution are happening and whatnot, they can have access to discipleship tools. So Dustin, who had no idea what he was going to do, ended up taking videography, finding his passion for that, and he's also been offered positions for oil companies doing filming there, so very hireable. The next student I'm going to talk about is Lisa. She graduated from Prairie's nursing program as a licensed practical nurse, and currently she is serving in Peter Lougheed Hospital in Calgary in the pediatric unit. She loves interacting with the children there and her coworkers as well, just sharing the gospel in that community and truly having a ministry of compassion and mercy. There's also Jeremiah, who graduated from Prairie's 4-year Bachelor of Arts in Theology, and he is studying at Westminster Seminary to be an Old Testament professor. In that, he's also written a book already in his first year of seminary, which is mind-boggling, but he's pursuing that. And last but not least is Ajit, who graduated from Prairie's aviation program. He ended up flying for skydiving for a summer, for those people who wanted to do that, and he actually helped out with the British military. Or maybe there's the student, a typical student who might not know what they want to do. And like I mentioned before, Prairie has programs that can allow you to figure out where your giftings are and where you might serve in the world. So we have one-year opportunities, a certificate in Bible. Maybe you want to do wilderness and leadership in Montana for a year or travel overseas to Africa for a year. All of these one-year programs will allow you to figure out where your giftings are, where you might want to serve in the world, and how you can have a lifetime of purposeful service no matter what career you choose. And of course, this is a homeschooler conference, so I just want to mention we do accept homeschoolers to all of our programs. We have a very simple application, so feel free to visit me at my booth, like I said, for a personal conversation or to find out more. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Maria McDonald, and I'm a Wisdom graduate from Derwent. And when I was finishing my homeschooling through high school, I was looking for a college experience that would both be academically strong and would allow me to thrive in my faith. And that was why I was so grateful to God when He led me to Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. So I'm here to speak a little bit about our college today. So Our Lady Seat of Wisdom is a small Catholic liberal arts college in Barry's Bay, Ontario, in the Ottawa Valley, so just between Ottawa and Toronto. And everything there is so vibrant and alive, partly because the academy, we call it that because we take our vision from Plato's ancient vision of an academy of liberal arts. Our founders, 14 years ago, came together with a vision for a post-secondary education that would have 3 hallmarks. The first is that it would be academically excellent. The second is that it would be authentically Catholic. And the third is that it would be affordable to Canadian families. So they began with only 9 students. 14 years later, we have almost 100 students and 16 faculty. So what does an education look like? What does an academically education look like at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom? Well, the Academy's motto is Veritas Vos Liberabit. That's the truth will set you free. And that motto applies to everything. Our students seek truth, which comes from God. We believe that truth is real and knowable, and everything we do aims at finding it. So in the first year, everyone takes a core curriculum so that you have a broad basis in the liberal arts. They're called that because they set the mind free. So everyone takes philosophy, logic, ethics, Christian doctrine, the history of Western civilization, biblical literature, Latin, essay writing, and chorus. And we believe this provides you with a foundation to take on just about anything in life, because if you have faith and reason, you will be able to tackle whatever God is calling you to. After the first year, We have 6 concentrations that our upper year students can go into. So philosophy, theology, history, literature, and sacred music. Our students often come for just 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years. Right now we're working on putting in a 4th year, but you can take any length of program. I went for all 3 years. Many of our students transfer to other institutions afterwards. There's a plethora of colleges that are now accepting the Academy's credits. Very easy to finish your 4th year at another place after doing studies at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. It's an academically challenging but wonderful program. Second, authentically Catholic. Everything at the Academy is to the glory of God. Our professors swear fidelity to Christ and His Church every year at the beginning of the school year. And the spiritual life is truly something that I didn't expect I could find and experience in college that would be so amazing in bringing me closer to our Lord. All of our classes are centered around allowing our students to worship in church. There's many opportunities for the sacraments and prayer. And you know, one of the great saints said that the glory of God is a man fully alive. And our students really seek to do that. Everything we do is to the glory of God, whether it's singing Handel's Messiah in Ottawa, taking part in theater and drama, sports, hiking in the beautiful Ottawa Valley. Whatever it is, all of it is directed to glorifying God and helping us to reach our full potential. Last but not least, the Academy is also extremely affordable. For the 2014 to 2015 academic year, it's only $6,250 tuition and only $5,000 for room and board. So you're looking at over just $10,000 for 1 year's education, which is a real bargain. And I also found one thing I appreciated was that the Academy is extremely open to homeschoolers. They love us there, actually. So it's very simple to apply after graduating from homeschool. You just need to have completed grade 12, which includes personally designed homeschool program plans. You just submit that. A transcript describing each of your courses with letter and number grades, and filling out an application with some essays for the Academy. If you have SATs or anything like that, that's helpful, but not necessary. So it's very simple. We look at each student and evaluate them with what they come with. And the real beauty of this kind of education is it prepares you for anything, for entrepreneurship and leadership, for any state in life. Our students have gone on from everything to law school, to firefighting, to religious life. And that is what happens when you give your life fully to God and try to live your full potential through entering this kind of community life. Community life is amazing there. It's small. You know everyone. Your professors know you by name. You get one-on-one attention. So I think that it was an incredible, incredible experience. And if you'd like to talk to me about Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, just step over to the booth. It's actually right around the corner of this door. I'd love to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Emily Lynch, and I am representing Trinity Western University, which is located in Langley, British Columbia, 45 minutes outside of Vancouver. So you kind of have some kind of an idea of where we are. And today I'm going to chat with you guys about the benefits of a liberal arts education. You've already heard the term once, and there's a couple other schools here that are liberal arts universities. So I just want to ask, show of hands, who has heard the term liberal arts? Oh, perfect, a lot of you guys. Okay, who knows what that means? Okay, perfect. So there's a couple different ways to define liberal arts. The very basic element is kind of already what Maria alluded to, is that you have, most of our liberal arts universities have a core amount of classes that all students will have to take as part of their program. So a benefit of that is, as a science student, you are required to take some English courses and some critical thinking courses and some philosophy, religious studies. So even though you're going to be focusing on science, you'll still be able to learn how to talk and speak and write really well, which is really helpful in the job market later on in life. Also, on the flip side, as an English student, you'll be taking some science and math courses and some more of those types of right brain thinking, and so you'll be able to not only speak and write well, but also be able to understand the science and the technical side of things. So overall, it's just the well-rounded degree in that you are studying both types of things. So that's basic, elemental thing. Beyond that, though, liberal arts universities offer opportunities that other universities may not offer. So first thing is also already alluded to is the professors at liberal arts universities are really interested in getting to know their students. They work really hard to get to know their students by name, really have a strong desire to serve the students there. For example, at Trinity, in one of my classes, we were invited to my professor's house for dinner, and we had dinner with his family, and then he went over like the final, and we studied for a final together as a class. And the cool thing about that is at Trinity, that's not weird, and that's not unheard of. It happens with so many classes. You get to know your professors really well. They invite you over. They're there to mentor you, also to teach you, so that they just really develop those relationships, and that is true for other liberal arts universities that are represented here as well. Another cool benefit of that is there's opportunities such as travel studies and opportunities to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your country, and be able to see the world and see God's heart for the world. So we offer travel studies. I went to Guatemala and Belize for my travel study, and it was for 1 month in May in my second year. And I was a communications major, so when I went to Guatemala, we were looking at nonprofit organizations and how they were making like sustainable jobs within the cities there and within the countries there. And so we got to go every day. We would visit a new organization and see different things like farmers that were growing coffee beans, coffee plants. And then there was this one woman we visited who was setting up entrepreneurship businesses for these other homeless women who were living in these shacks. And she would teach them how to run businesses like making jewelry or running like a laundromat or just kind of anything and everything, whatever the skills were those women had. She would teach them how to make that into a business, which would give them sustainable funding for the rest of their life. So just learning how to do those types of things, and I was able to see that firsthand and see God's heart for that firsthand and be able to later when I got home write my papers about that. And I just learned a lot in that experience and lots of opportunities for that. We go to a lot of different places kind of depending on what you're studying. There's London, Guatemala, Africa, yeah, lots of different ones. There's a group that follows the Summer Olympics around. So there's lots of opportunities to work in different areas depending on what you're interested in. And another benefit of the liberal arts education is the campus community. All of our schools have really good community, lots of things to get involved with, lots of leadership opportunities on campus. So for example, at Trinity, we have Bible studies that you could lead or participate in. There's worship teams. We have chapel every Monday to Friday. So it's not required, but it's heavily encouraged. We would like students to go and be able to grow their relationship with God. There's lots of opportunities to volunteer off campus, and again, get out of your comfort zone, even at your school and even close to that area. We have lots of different ministries that you can work with youth. There's youth and there's working with kids at a children's church. I was involved in a street evangelism drama ministry. So we would go down to Vancouver every Friday and do these dramas that were explain the gospel, stuff like that. She talked about the story of Jesus. And we would talk to people about what Jesus meant. So there'd be the drama going on, and whoever was not in the drama would be in the crowd. And if someone was watching, I'd walk up and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And use that as a platform to talk about Jesus and to talk about my faith. And it was great to be able to put what I was learning in the classroom in my religious studies courses as well as in my communication courses to the test right away and really just struggle through some issues and work through some issues in my faith, which is great. And another benefit of the liberal arts university in a Christian setting is that there are professors and people there that are there to help you struggle through questions of your faith. Because when you go to university, your faith will get challenged. That's going to happen. And there's people there at Trinity and many of the Christian institutions here have this set up as well, where you can talk to someone about some of the issues you're having. The religious studies professors are fantastic in helping you sort through any things that come up as you're studying the Bible, as you're studying different things. Lots of opportunities there. And then there's student leaders that are set up to help you work through those issues. And if you want to be a student leader, you can. There's lots of student leadership opportunities. And also, lastly, most important, there's lots of prayer, lots of worship, and lots of serving God together as a community and as a campus. So it's a great opportunity. Lots of liberal arts universities have those opportunities as well. And so I would encourage you guys to come on over, chat with me if you're interested, ask questions about all those different kinds of things. And for homeschool requirements, we just require SAT or ACT, as well as an educational background chart. So you can come ask me questions. I'd love to get to know you and chat with you. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name's Lindsay Berg. I'm one of the admission counselors with the King's University College, and we're located in the eastern part of Edmonton, just off of the Sherwood Park Freeway and 50th Street. We offer faith-based education, and it is a university college, which means we offer fully accredited university-level bachelor degrees in arts, science, commerce, music, and 2 degrees in education. And our motto at King's is inspired to learn and prepared to serve. And so that really inspired this presentation today, which is on servant leaders and lifelong learners. Those are 2 things that really describe our students at King's. So King's creates servant leaders and lifelong learners by educating the whole person. And this is largely through critical thinking and conversation development. So Christian higher education seeks to develop the whole person, not just expanding a student's intellect, but also their emotional and spiritual intellects as well. We are liberal arts. Our students study a variety of subject areas, not just your primary area of study. And this really creates interest in other areas. So beyond just the realm of, for me, was music, I became interested in psychology, biology, and history. And so it creates this lifelong hunger for learning more about God's creation. King's also creates an environment for critical thinking. So students at King's are encouraged to not just memorize knowledge and regurgitate it on exams, but to really wrestle with the concepts learned in class, to really think about it. And you'll find that it really challenges your own preconceptions, your own beliefs, and to explore what other people think, and just to appreciate those differences of opinion. Students at King's are encouraged to ask questions, to always ask questions, not just at school, not just in the classroom, but outside of it as well, and when you graduate. Students at King's are encouraged to incorporate their faith and their personal worldview in their education. So in the classroom, professors will often ask students, why are you at King's? Why are you studying this particular program? How does your faith influence what you want to study, how you study it, what you want to do with it when you're done King's? So you'll often be stretched and encouraged at King's. King's creates servant leaders and lifelong learners through our Christian perspective in our classes, and creating a real connection between classroom learning and also real life outside of the classroom. And so we at King's believe that a Christian perspective can be involved in any area of study, not just the area of theology or Christian ministry, but whatever your focus is on. And this is really important for students who maybe want to have a career in business, a career becoming a nurse or a doctor or even a psychological counselor. And so how do you connect this Christian perspective beyond the classroom? And so some examples that King's brings up in the classroom can be seen in psychology. So how do you view your client when you realize that they are also a child of God? What role does the Holy Spirit play in a counseling session? Or in business, it's no longer about the bottom line or how much money your business makes. What about ethical business, fair business, or sustainable business, not only for your employees, but also for the environment? And then in the area of biology, how do we worship God by learning more about our genetic makeup? So there's all of these connections that can be made in any area of study that can be combined with our faith. And one of the primary ways that King's facilitates this is through our faculty. They are the primary example of servant leaders and lifelong learners. So our professors have personally chosen to work at King's. They are the top of their field. 90% of our faculty have their PhDs, which is the highest level of study. And they've chosen King's out of other institutions because they realize that at King's they can really pour into their students and invest in them, that they can encourage them, they can pray with them, and they can help grow their intellect as well. So they get to do this with their students by having a really close professor-student mentorship in the classroom. We have small class sizes, an average of 20 students. We also have faculty advisors. So every student at King's will be assigned a faculty member in their area of interest who will oversee their entire degree, making sure they're taking the right sorts of courses, making them aware of summer job opportunities, and even writing them reference letters at the other end. And all of our professors have an open door policy. So if students want to chat with them about assignments, about exams, or even if they're struggling with the class, professors will sit down and pray with them. So these professors really invest heavily in our students and create this campus atmosphere of servant leaders and lifelong learners. So if you're interested in learning more about King's, I'll be at my booth all day. We do have an excellent homeschool admissions policy that's fairly similar and straightforward and similar to the other institutions here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, ladies. You might have noticed that we're a little ahead of schedule, but that's okay, because the day will get eaten up. So we've got a bit of leisure to take some questions. So if you have a question, it'd probably be best to go to the microphone, or I could even wander with this one. And your question can be to any of the institutions who are up here. And we also, because we're running through the YouTube, actually running through the Wisdom website, we will have questions that come by email as well. So we'll try to get those answered too. So if anybody with a question.
Do any of the colleges have daily mass in the morning?
In answer to your question, at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, you have your pick usually every day of at least 2 daily masses at different times, in the morning, in the evening, sometimes at noon, which I found really beneficial to the spiritual life. And all the classes are organized around allowing you to get to Mass if you want to. We also have a weekly Academy Mass where everybody gathers to worship together, faculty and students. It's a really amazing way of incorporating faith daily.
And at Trinity, we have a sister Catholic affiliate college called Redeemer Pacific College, if any of you guys have heard of that. It's right there, and they do have daily Mass. We have evening Vespers as well as Mass during the chapel time at 11 o'clock in the middle of the day. And also classes are arranged so you could go to those.
I've got a question. Do you have statistics or some sort of, have you looked in an objective way at how homeschoolers have performed in your institution over the past number of years, relative to, say, the norm? That's a question for all 4 of you.
I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but we have had many different homeschoolers. This past year, we had, I think, 30 or 40 homeschooling students that applied and came to Trinity out of 500 incoming class. And so a chunk of them. And homeschooling students do really well at Trinity because of the community. Again, it's a bit of a larger university compared to some of these other schools, about 2,000 undergraduate students. But because of the community and because of the professors, and it's just really intentional to make sure students are not lost in the mix. So they do really well with that. Academically, homeschoolers usually excel higher than a lot of the other students in the classes, just because you guys are already in that rigorous set of doing academics and such. So excel really well there. And then also just getting involved in the community off campus and getting involved in making impact that way is really high for our homeschoolers as well. Sorry, I don't have any specific numbers. If you want numbers, come to me, I'll write down your email and I will find those out and email them to you.
So King's statistics on homeschoolers is quite similar to Trinity Western's. I don't have any hard statistics for you today, but anecdotally, I can tell you that we have about 20 or so homeschoolers in any given year. We have a total population of about 690 students. I can tell you that our students tend to do extremely well if they have been homeschooled. This past year, our top graduate at King's, who had the highest GPA overall, was a homeschool student who was accepted into the U of A's physical therapy program. So I do know that our students do extremely well in general, mostly because that homeschool students are really driven. You're used to working hard on your own, being your own motivator, and that's exactly what university is all about, just motivating yourself and pushing yourself without having direct supervision of a professor or a teacher over you. So, similar to Emily, if you would like some more statistics, you can stop by my booth and I'll grab your name and email, and we'll be in touch.
Well, at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, we have a high percentage of homeschoolers in the student body. I would say in a given year, maybe around 40% of the student body are homeschool graduates. And from what I've seen, homeschoolers tend to really thrive in the atmosphere at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. They're ready for the academics, and around grad, a lot of homeschooled students tend to graduate with very high marks. Most of them, a lot of them tend to make the dean's list at the end of the year. But also they adapt very well to the kind of community life, which is a very strong point of the academy because it is so small. There's a real family atmosphere, and homeschoolers really rise to be leaders in that kind of atmosphere, where you're living in small houses, about 16 students to a house. Homeschool students have got it down. That's the kind of atmosphere they've been studying in anyway. So homeschoolers tend to adapt really well. It's a great transition.
I'm going to say the same thing. Surprise, surprise. No hard stats for you guys. I'm an admissions counselor, and so this past year I do know that I had a handful of applicants who were home-based learners. And the population at Prairie is about 250 each year, 200 to 250, and I would say 10% of the incoming is probably home-based learners, but once again, that's not hard. I will say, like, as they have already said, they tend to succeed. If you have been a home-based learner, you are driven. You have a knack for writing, I find, that a lot of home-based learners on a lot of their essays and things like that. I was also an essay editor for Student Success Services, and I would recruit home-based learners to help me with that because they would be so diligent in that. So yeah, you guys are doing really well for yourselves, and I have no doubt in my mind that you would succeed at any of the institutions represented here. Prairie does offer a distance education school, so I know that some of you are comfortable with doing online or distance learning and staying at home. And if that's your preference as well, Prairie does offer our bachelor programs and one-year programs, or just individual courses online. So online learning, fully accredited, you can go that route as well.
Hi, good morning, ladies. I'm just curious to know, what is the youngest student that you've ever had admitted to your college, university? And sorry, and how successful have they become, if you know? Yeah.
Excellent question. Our youngest student that we've admitted, I think, is 16. I don't think we've had anyone younger than that. So we've had a couple 16-year-olds go through, and I actually came when I just turned 17, so I was kind of in that area as well. And students adapt really well. It is a bit of a harder challenge because you're still, from personal experience, I still felt like a teenager, but I was all of a sudden thrown into this university environment. And Trinity was great for that because, again, the community is there to help serve you. I met with my resident assistant, so the leader of my dorm, every week because she'd help me to work through and like get involved in the community and help me figure out where my place was. And yeah, with that, it's great. There's lots of help with professors as well if you're feeling, usually 16-year-olds that are coming have no problem with the academics because they've excelled in that area. So it's more so just getting involved in the community, making friends, and feeling like you're a part of the family there. So, and there's, again, lots of opportunities for that type of environment, and they do thrive really well. At least all the, like, a lot of the people that I have known that are 16 or in that area thrive and really enjoy it and get to know people really well.
Once again, I don't know the answer, but I think it's probably 16 or 17. Typically, we have people who have graduated, and that's the youngest that I've seen, except on movies for people going in. But I will say that Prairie does have a high school on campus as well, so we have a lot of overlap between people who are in the 14, 15, 16 age range, mingling with college students and already getting integrated into that post-secondary life. So it's something that the college students are used to on campus, is having younger people around, and that high school is also linked through like a K through 12. So they've got two separate campuses. You'll see people of all ages on campus, and it's a great environment for mentorship opportunities and whatnot. So whether it's fully academic or just community related, I would say that whether you're 14, 15, 16, 17, you'll probably do well in the environment at Prairie.
Kings is very similar. Our youngest student was 16 years old, and we don't have any age restrictions. So as long as a student has completed the equivalent of 5 grade 12 courses, whether that's home-based learning or in the public system, they can be admitted to Kings. And again, so one of the hardest things is getting used to student life. So you have academics under your belt. And we do have quite a few student leaders who are there to try and encourage younger students to get involved and to be a part of the community and just make them feel welcome at Kings. So it's most easiest in the residence. Every floor of the residence has a resident assistant who is there for students who might be in distress or who just want someone to talk with on the floor. Every floor in residence also has a ministry coordinator who's kind of in charge of the spiritual life on each floor. Each floor has about 20 students. And so they create Bible study opportunities, prayer groups, accountability groups, things like that. So that's the most visible way that resident students can get that support and be a part of the community. For commuter students, we have a commuter student program, and it's very similar to the residence program. They have events every single day of the week where students can drop in. There's about 5 to 7 commuter student leaders, and so they try and match themselves up with students at Kings, and they can keep an eye on students who are younger and trying to make them more a part of the community.
I think the youngest student, full-time student, who's been admitted to Our Lady Seat of Wisdom was 17. We have had some 16-year-old part-time students, but I know I attended when I was 17, and I found similar to what these ladies were saying. It's an institution where, because the community life is so strong, that younger students can adapt well. Big enough that you can hold whatever kind of event you want, sports, whatever, that you might need a lot of people for, but small enough that you're never a number, you're always a person there. And everybody, yeah, and when you join, when you attend, sorry, losing my train of thought for a moment here. Students often find that you make friends quickly in that kind of environment, and because you can receive so much one-on-one attention, it's very easy to thrive in your studies, even at that very young age. So again, all you need is to have finished grade 12, so it doesn't matter what age that's at.
I'm just wondering if you would address students who enter your college a little later, so say 19 or 20. Do the requirements change, and if so, what are they? Thank you.
We would consider students who are over the age of 25 mature students, and so they are not required to submit a high school transcript. If they have done previous post-secondary, we would want to see those transcripts. Maybe they get transfer credit and whatnot. But there is that exemption from submitting a high school transcript or home-based learner profile if you are over that age. And on that note, when I was asked about the youngest person who ever attended, I think we have some older individuals as well. We've had people who are taking the nursing program who are 65. So all age ranges there, and we welcome people I think will thrive. I personally went to Prairie when I was 20 years old, so it took a while for me to actually get into post-secondary, and I did fine as well. So all ages.
is a great question. So at King's, we do accept mature students. For us, it starts at age 21 or older. And really, we're just looking for two pieces of criteria. One is English proficiency. So if you've done any kind of grade 12 English diploma exam, that meets it. If you don't have that, that's absolutely fine. We have an on-campus exam. It takes about 2 hours to write, and can't really study for it. It's just kind of some general reading comprehension, write a paragraph on this and that. And if you pass that, that meets the English proficiency requirement. And then any program-specific requirements. So the majority of our Bachelor of Arts programs, there aren't any additional requirements. If you're interested in our science programs, commerce, or the four-year psychology program, there might be a math requirement or science requirements. So we're looking for grade 12 courses in those areas or proficiency on one of our on-campus exams.
Like at King's, mature students, 21 and up, have their own ways of making arrangements with the academy. So we would look at evaluating each person, person by person, and basically looking at what you have. If you have a high school diploma, if you have SAT, if you're transferring from another institution, we would look at that and evaluate it. But there have been lots of mature students who I've seen go through the academy and have done really well. You have the option, if you're a little bit older, of living off campus. First year students always live in residence, but after that, or if you are older, then you have the option of living a little more independently in town if you would like. Our campus is right on the edge of town, so it's very convenient whether you're living on campus or just finding somewhere else to live.
Yeah, again, Trinity Western University, kind of same as King's and Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. It's the 21 is considered the mature student age. And so after that, it's you just need to have a completion of high school and then possibly SAT, kind of depending on, we again evaluate students individually at that point. So kind of just depends on what you have, what you're able to show us. And as far as integrating into the community and culture and stuff, there's opportunities to live off campus. Once you turn 21, you're able to live off campus, regardless of how long you've been at Trinity. And yeah, there's again lots of opportunities to lead. If you're a bit older coming into Trinity and you want to be in leadership, you can get involved in leadership a bit earlier, which is kind of cool. And yeah, so if you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to come and chat with me.
One of you had mentioned that you had like online courses. Does either of the other colleges have?
We have some online courses, but you can't do your full degree online, if that makes sense. There's a couple of online options, but you couldn't get a full bachelor's or a full degree from those.
Good morning. My question is mainly for King's and Trinity Western in the Sciences Department. Do all your professors have a biblical foundation, and how do they handle the 7-day creation issue?
So I'm not sure if I got the first part of your question with the biblical foundation. I can tell you that all of our professors have a Christian faith. They sign a statement of faith, and they do incorporate that perspective in the classroom. We do offer university education, which means that courses taken at King's are transferable to other institutions like the U of A and U of C, which means that content learned in, say, an evolutionary biology class will be the same as a course taught at another institution, but the perspective is different. So rather than teaching that evolutionary biology is fact, we are outright in saying that it is a theory. It's not what our university personally believes in. We don't have an exact faith statement on issues like that, but we are open to saying that this is a theory, but we believe that God is the creator. And so we mostly just keep the classes open to encourage students that there are other theories out there, but we're not going to promote any single one.
Excellent question again. You guys are great at asking those good questions. So Trinity Western University, similar to King's, we have all of our professors are Christians, faith-based. They sign a covenant and statement and everything when they come on to teach. And because we are a Christian university, the Christian perspective is taught in all of our classes. But also similar to King's, all of our classes are transferable to UBC, U of A, U of C. We're fully accredited that way as well. So the content, again, would be the same. So we would teach creationism and everything as another theory alongside evolution, but we would absolutely say that we believe in creationism, and more where you see like the 7-day creation type thing coming out is in religious studies courses when we're studying like Genesis and those types of things. That's where all that comes out, and different professors have different views on that. So you get to see a lot of different perspectives, and they'll all teach all the different perspectives, which is really great. So you get to see everything.
Just to add to that, Our Lady Seat of Wisdom does have a sciences department, though we don't have a sciences concentration. Many students take their studies in that area and might just do their last year to get a scientific degree somewhere else. And in all our natural studies courses, like these institutions, it's also coming from the perspective of faith. So we would study historically many different theories that have been held and such, and examine them for truth and such. So when it comes to things like creation, our professors in the light of faith would definitely uphold God as Almighty Creator who set everything in motion and on the earth. How that has done, well, how we would look at different things that have been said, and through discussion and examining the church's point of view, he would look at the validity of the different arguments. So I think sort of both and, looking at all the different theories so that you have a broad scientific basis, but also adhering to what we can know by faith.
Thank you, Emily, Maria. I was coming. It was Lindsay, and Gail. We appreciate the time. You've got a question. Well, you know what? I won't stand in the way of that.
Okay. It's just that we're just entering into high school with our children now, and it was interesting that a friend of ours whose son is graduating in this year, that the registered education savings plan at a lot of places is not accepted for our funding. And I was just wondering if any of you are aware that your institutions do accept registered education savings plans.
Yes. Yes. We do as well. We would definitely look any kind of education if you finished your school, yes.
Your former fiance? Are you going to answer this? Okay.
If I could just speak to that, we've had some experience with children going to post-secondary, and we tried to use our registered educational savings plans for Bible school, and they wouldn't allow us. That wasn't allowed at all. So.
It would be the case for Our Lady Seat of Wisdom as well. Unless you're a certified college or university, this is a Revenue Canada thing, basically. You can't use registered education saving plans for that. But you can use it for something else. Thank you, and thank you. We've had a good session of questions here. We're about to hear from Eric Spoth, but I know some of you came in and you're still in your winter coats, and you've got to be starting to feel uncomfortable, I'm sure. So let's just take not even 5 minutes, just to stand up. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, so I'm Scott Bokenfor. Just to get a little clarification on RESPs. There are two different types of RESPs. One is a trust program, and there's the other one's like self-directed. Trust program is basically like a contract, and those ones are very limiting. You're limited to what schools, options, fees, all that kind of stuff. The open one, like the ones you'll find with, either the banks or, financial advisors, that kind of stuff, those are more open and you have more options. If your children are 16 or older, unfortunately, at this point, you don't have any options. You are where you are. You can't make any adjustments on that standpoint. Just to kind of give you the idea, if you're on a self-directed program and you have multiple kids, the best thing you probably want to do is put that all together to a family plan. And then what that does for you allows you that when your first child goes to school, what the advisor can do is take all the grants out for that one child. So if your only child goes to school is your oldest, and the rest of the children don't, all you're left with then is what you've put in and all the growth. So just talk to your advisor and just let them know that you want to have a family plan that's self-directed, and so that you can, and then so when they do the first one goes to school, just when you ask for that, you can say, hey, please just take all the grants out first, and they can do that. So that gives you a little more options. Okay? Thanks. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask me. I'll be here. Thanks.
Did you want to add anything?
It's a few years ago now that we were working on this, so as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to remember all the details of it. But our trust fund was with the Canadian Scholarship Trust Fund, and it was very limited with being able to use that for a Bible school. That wasn't considered an academic school. I do believe our daughter went to Trinity Western, and I believe we were able to use that Scholarship Trust Fund there because they considered that to be more of an academic studies university. Our other son went to the Bible school in Camrose, and we definitely weren't able to use the grant money that came with that. We were able just to take out the money that we had put in and use that for him.
I was just speaking to my sister-in-law. Her daughter's gone through the 2-year program at CLBI. CLBI, which is the Canadian Lutheran Bible College or Institute in Camrose, is RESP approved. Like, they do accept that, but it's a 2-year program. It has to be the 2-year program. So, and she was, her investments were used for the 2 years. She didn't necessarily encourage anyone else to use with the people that she went through, but they did work out for them.
Good, thank you. Money. So, thank you for coming back. Time to time we come across homeschoolers who have, who have even surprised themselves with what they have accomplished. And we try to bring some of these homeschoolers back here to talk to you about the journey and to encourage you to really prepare yourself and follow your inspiration, your passion, your calling, because you have no idea where it'll take you if you are open to the Lord working in your life. Our next speaker actually I was his facilitator when he was in high school, and as far as I recall, he spent more time doing stuff, although he did do school. He was actually a good boy, but he did a lot of stuff, and when I would come to visit their family, I would have to look at the computer games that he had created and the videos that he had created with his brother. And just like every facilitator has to look at what's going on. And I was intrigued by how, actually later, I was intrigued with how ordinary it all was. It was just ordinary, like I've seen in so many other homes. And yet this person has become a world-class filmmaker, producer, and director and writer. So I'd like to introduce Eric Spoth.
World class, I would contend that, but I think that's the best microphone. This one has the bathtub sound effect, so I'll stick this one. Well, thank you, Ken, and I have to say I'm humbled and honored to be here. I'm 32 years old, an age when a lot of people in my industry start kind of looking back at their life and asking, what have I done? At my age, Steven Spielberg had directed Jaws, and, well, Christ had saved humankind, and what have I done? But, but I can see that everything that I've done has contributed in some way to the work that I do, and none of it was wasted. Film, I think it's kind of appropriate that Ken invited me to talk about film, because film is one of those art forms that is both an art form and a business. And it's a way of making money, and it's also a way of changing culture and leading culture. So I'll kind of talk about both, because I think we have to have one foot in the real world and our head up in the heavens. So, and I know a lot of parents are always concerned about children who get into the arts. I mean, they ask, how are you going to make a living, and also how are you going to do it without compromising somewhere along the line your integrity. So I'm going to address some of those things as well, because I face them all the time. So Ken mentioned a little bit about my homeschooling experience. I remember being sort of in your shoes, sort of shaking, thinking, oh no, the time is coming, I'm going to have to fly the coop, and I don't know how I'm going to survive in the real world. I think we homeschoolers, we quite often underestimate what we do know and how capable we are, and I'll explain why. Firstly, the entrepreneurial aspect, I think, is something that parents do a lot to encourage in a child. I know my parents did. At the age of 9, I came up with the idea to start a detective agency. I guess my town needed one. So I said, well, firstly, I need a headquarters to set up my home base. So I went ahead and wrote to the mayor of the town. Nobody told me how to do it, so I just wrote the letter. I got a phone call about a week later, and they said, we have a space for you. It was a free office space. I was able to set up shop. I got my friends to help out, and I wrote to the police, and I reassured them, we would only take care of the smaller cases and keep them up. They offered us a tour of the facility, and at the age of 12, as Ken mentioned, I was writing computer programs and instead of doing schoolwork. And my parents repeatedly told me, it's a waste of your time, and you're never going to need that kind of thing. And so I started a little software company with my friends and started selling some of these computer games to the computer store in town. And and then sort of, again, just to kind of reiterate some of the challenges that go along with being an entrepreneur, I think at one point there was a mutiny and they all kind of quit, and I cried, I think, and and then the next business experience I had was with my parents' strawberry farm. So one of the benefits of our homeschooling experience was we had to grow strawberries from like April to August. So they needed laborers. We couldn't afford to hire people. So my siblings and myself were basically workers. So I got a bit of experience on how the business is run. So that was really helpful too. And then after high school, after my brief post-secondary experience, I went into business myself and ran my video production business. So I was homeschooled from the age of 11. My father, who was an educator by profession, began teaching me, and after probably 6 months, I realized it just wasn't working with us. I had a different learning style, so I basically thought it'd be best to let him go. And I was on my own. And as most homeschoolers experience when they're sort of thrown into the deep end, so to speak, and nobody's there to tell them what to do and how to do it, you start falling behind. And I found the beginning quite difficult. I think at one point I was in grade 5 and my peers were in grade 7 or 8. And that was quite difficult because up until that point I'd been comparing myself to everyone else. And as if that bar is how to measure success. And I was told at the time that I needed a high school diploma, so that's what I did. I went ahead and just fought through the courses, fought through the things I thought I needed to learn to get my diploma. Around the age of probably 12, I started thinking about what I want to do with my life. And I had probably 10 things on my list. I wanted to be an archaeologist and a paleontologist and an astronomer, and many, many other things. And then I realized realistically I couldn't do all of those things in my lifetime, so maybe I can make movies about people who do those things, and I could somehow live out that dream through the medium of film. So my parents rented a VHS camera. Those big ones were very modern at the time, and made short films with my brother. And we tried to use some of these as projects for our arts requirements in school. A lot of them were very rudimentary. We edited from one VHS player to another. I don't know if any of you in the room remember that way of doing things. A lot of them were martial arts comedies because they were easy to do. And we would make, with our video games, we'd make sound effects every time we'd punch each other and so on. I wouldn't show them to people today, but I can see I can see that they all, again, were each one built on skills learned from the previous one, and each one became more and more sophisticated and directly contributed to the career I have today. So that's basically how I spent my junior high school years. And the only extracurricular activity I was involved in was karate. I did martial arts now for 20 years. And I think that was also a very, very important factor in the work that I do in every aspect of my life, because it reinforced the self-discipline and the focus and that drive that you need to have when you're going to be an entrepreneur, or if you're going to be a leader in any capacity. So that and my faith. Film was something that we watched together as a family occasionally, and we discussed as a family. And my father would ask questions about what we saw, and including things that were sometimes negative, were learning opportunities. And I developed at an early age this kind of awareness of sort of self-censorship, of kind of being able to kind of dissect things, being able to discriminate. Discrimination's a bad word today, but it's actually a good word. It means you can differentiate between what's true and what's not. I watched everything. I watched classic films. I love the silent films. I watched modern films. And I started to develop a little bit of my own language for film. And then as I was approaching high school, as I mentioned, I started getting really anxious. I was falling behind pretty dramatically. So I basically completed, I think, grade 11 in 6 months or 4 months or something. And I challenged the Alberta High School Diploma exam. I think I got mostly 90s and everything. About 5 years later, I forgot everything. I couldn't remember basic math. I remember my colleague and I, he's a computing science master's person. When we worked together in a production studio, we were trying to figure out how much money we make a year. So we were looking for a calculator. We couldn't find one anywhere. And we couldn't do the math on paper. So we opened the computer and looked for the calculator program, and it was somehow missing. So so the interesting thing is that I was able to do the exam because I learned how to study in school, but I knew that I wasn't going to go into the maths or the sciences. So I think because I wasn't curious about it instinctively, I didn't retain the information. Whereas I could tell you anything about a certain director or a certain film or a game. And so basically I got my diploma, and with that in hand, I went out on my own, 17 years old, to the big city. Was terrified, had no idea how the public transportation system worked. Thought it would swallow me up whole, and I got an apartment and landed my first job at Subway, and was called a sandwich artist. And to this day, that's still the only job I've ever had to prove I had high school education. To this day. So that lasted a few months. I got fired after I left the door open twice on the closing shift. But shortly afterwards, I got a great opportunity. A friend of mine happened to be working at the University of Alberta in a production studio. At the time, they had basically this organization that made educational distance learning courses. So incorporating video and Flash and website design. They would build these courses, and they would be offered online for grad students. So she heard about me looking for a job, and she knew I had a little bit of a portfolio of work from school. So she gave my portfolio to the managing director, and I started volunteering there. And after a few weeks, they hired me. So I found myself teaching basically doctorate students and master's students how to use video in their teaching and learning. And I was just waiting for when they would discover I was a fraud and that I didn't even have an undergraduate degree. And eventually they did find out, and they forced me to go back to school and learn the things I had already learned in multimedia at NAIT. So I got a diploma at NAIT, and I worked there for 3 years. At that point, I realized this isn't really what I want to do. I want to make more films. So I thought I'd pick up the camera again and try going back into filmmaking. So I made a short film. It was going to star my sister and brother-in-law. And when it came to shooting, they didn't show up. So I basically just put the camera on a tripod, and I filmed myself doing both characters. and ended up getting, it was my first film festival screened film, which was quite a turning point for me, and also a very good confidence booster. So with that, I decided to go to film school. At the time, basically the options were the Vancouver Film School, which is something like $30,000 a year, and if you're lucky at the end, you'll get a job as a cab driver or something. And or to go to a shorter program, like a diploma or certificate program. So I found this place in Australia called the University of Technology in Sydney, and they had a one-year film certificate, which was perfect for me because it meant that I could basically get experience working on film, learning the proper way to make film. I'd be able to network with other filmmakers, and I would have money left over from the years that I've worked to finance my own films. And I think that's a pretty critical variable because when you're beginning in film, you end up spending a lot of your own money on it. And if I hadn't worked like that, I probably wouldn't have been able to make the short films that I did. And so I learned to work in actual film, 16 and 35 millimeter film. And I worked with an Australian cinematographer who had created some big films over there. And I took that back and I sent that to film festivals. It played around the world in film festivals. And then sort of the bug had taken over. So I came back to Canada and I started my own company, a sole proprietorships, which means I'm the only guy in business. And I taught myself all I could learn about video production and editing. And I started doing corporate videos, educational videos, and dance recitals, and anything I could do which was somewhat related to the field to pay the bills. And then with the money that I would save, I would finance my next film. At the same time, I would apply for grants. So I found out about all these provincial and federal grants that are for the arts. And I applied to one, I was rejected, and I applied again, I was rejected. And I think I was rejected 9 times, and then the 10th one, I think I finally got the grant, which suddenly opened up a whole new world for my films because the budgets I was working with were bigger now, which meant they could be longer. And so once you get one grant, other grants become easier to obtain and so on. And so my life consisted of doing these corporate videos, which were fine, they paid the bills, and then when I had enough money, I would produce the films I really wanted to make. At the same time, I discovered that maybe there would be some good opportunities working on bigger films, Hollywood films. And I wasn't sure how people go about doing that, so I took a course. I think it's a free course now in Edmonton. Every year they offer a set etiquette and protocol course. It's a half-day course. And then I was able to submit my name to the various unions, the Directors Guild of Canada, the IATSE, and so on. And once you have your name in the unions, you can get calls to work on bigger films. And that began my career as an AD, or an assistant director. So at the moment, I work usually as a second or a first AD on bigger films. And the reason why I'm mentioning that route is so that you know the sort of the three ways of working in the film industry. The way that I just mentioned is the way most film graduates end up working in film. They work on big Hollywood movies. Every year, I think there are probably about a dozen film schools in Alberta alone, in BC, that churn out about 1,000 grads, all vying for the same positions, you know, pouring coffee or pulling cables on Iron Man 4. And meanwhile, they have all their debts to pay off. So I began that route as a trainee assistant director, which involved me basically working, putting extras in the background, telling cars when to drive, cueing horses and cats and chickens and all kinds of, everything that doesn't involve the main actors is what an assistant director does. And as a trainee AD, I was directly accountable to the first AD, who basically is the one who organizes the entire production. And eventually I worked my way up the ranks. After about 8 years, I became a third AD, then a second AD, and occasionally I work as a first AD. And I realized this is pretty cool. I'm able to see the entire production, how it's made. But then I realized I'm working 14-hour days, 16-hour days. 14 hours is a good day, is a short day for us. And I'm making a lot of money, but I wouldn't even go to watch the movies I worked on. And I started losing touch with why I did this in the first place. And having a name on a credit of a big movie wasn't as fulfilling to me as some of the short films that I had made, that where I could tell my own story and where I could call the shots. And so and then I looked around me, and there were no first ADs who had become directors. They'd been doing it for years and years. Most of them failed marriages, you know, and yet none of them had been directing their own films. None of them even seemed to want to, and very few of them actually watched the films they worked on. So it occurred to me that the film industry is a lot like working in the oil patch, you know. A lot of very highly paid, highly specialized people. Almost everybody smokes, you know. And very few people care about the art and the story, except for about 2 people on set, the director and maybe the executive producer. So then I realized if I want to do this for a living, I should write more and direct more. And that's where I am today. Basically, I'm at the position in my career where I'm trying to write and direct more of my own work. And up until now, I haven't yet produced a feature film of my own because of the money involved, and because feature films, minimum, you're looking $500,000. And if they do well, it helps your career. If they do badly, they can kill your career. Short films, on the other hand, are great calling cards. They're also very, the distribution options are greater than they are with features. So that's the way that I'm trying to encourage everybody to go today, is begin now. Begin by writing your own short stories. Use your friends, use your family. Create the work that's going to build your portfolio, build your level of experience and your level of confidence. Create your own voice, learn the language of film, and then you're going to end up being a writer or a director. There's nothing wrong with going the other route and working on bigger films. In fact, I encourage it for a time to just learn what the experience is like. And if you're interested in doing that, I can definitely talk to you later on and point you to some resources of where to begin. Also, I'd like to mention that there is a program opening up next year, close to here, about an hour and a half east of here near Derwent. And it's Truth in Motion, which is a Catholic-based film program. It's a 4-week program plus a 2-week elective that's going to teach all the technical aspects of film as well as liberal arts. So teaching the artist to learn how to think and learn how to reason, and then use these principles through the medium of film. And this is what I didn't have in my education, which I wish I would have had, is the ability to be a better storyteller. So This, probably in about an hour, I think I'll have an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about it. But that's basically my story. And if you have any questions, feel free to go to the good microphone. Nothing. All right. Oh.
On average, how much would you make a year?
In my best year, I made $100,000. Probably in my worst, 40. The average, if you work through the unions, for example, the Directors Guild of Canada has a pay scale based on the tier of the film. So large budget films fall in tier A, and very low budget films fall in tier F. And so when a production comes to town, they basically go to the unions and say, this is our budget, and then they create a tier level. So tier A films, a first AD makes on average about $12,000 a week, and second maybe $9,000 a week, and then a tier F film. So just so you know the spectrum, a tier F film, if you're just starting out in the industry as a trainee, you might be making $300 a week. And then, like I said, you can work your way up the ranks in your department, and eventually you can make a lot of money. But it's long hours, grueling work schedule. On the other hand, when you're off, you're off. You know, you might work 2-3 movies a year, and then when you're not working on a film, you're free. So in that sense, it can be a good thing. But if for myself, I've tried to work out an arrangement where, ever possible, I try to have the producers bring my family out if I'm going to be away for a period, or I try to come home on the weekends. Usually we shoot 5-day weeks, sometimes 6-day weeks, but in the union you can't do 7-day weeks. So usually I have some time, but it is hard on relationships. It's hard on families. A lot of people who direct have the I guess the seniority to be able to dictate what their hours will be, or to be able to bring their families out to shoots. But regardless if you're working through the unions or not, I mean, any dedicated filmmaker will tell you that you're putting in a lot of time. Where other people quit, you keep going. And after you're finished shooting your own film, you're going to probably spend 6 to 8 months editing it. And that involves long, lonely hours staring at a screen. And so you have to love it to really want to do it. Thanks.
Eric, you alluded to, at the beginning of your talk, how the challenge that you might have faced in keeping your faith as well as producing, and how did you integrate that, and how did you overcome those challenges? Because I think as a parent, that's where our flags go up. We're really concerned that we've spent the time homeschooling and investing our time to try and impress on our children the really importance of our faith. Yep. So how did you notice that sometimes you were really forced to compromise, or how did you deal with those issues?
That's a tough question, because it's one I face every time I get offered a job. Luckily, when I work as a first AD, I get a script ahead of time, and I can review the script before I accept the job. If you're not the head of your department, usually you get a call from the head of the department, and they say, there's the new John Malkovich movie coming to town. Do you want to work on it? Yes or no. You never see a script. Really, it's very challenging. And I would say that the best way to approach that is to, as much as you can, do your own work and make your own place as a director. Even if you're doing short films that play at festivals, in my case, my shorts, I sold a few to airlines, for their in-flight entertainment programs. I sold one to a theater chain, and that has to be enough for a lot of us. And the reality is very, very few directors end up making careers out of it, because the market is so saturated with products now that for you to stand out, for your work to stand out, it has to have it's more than ever, it's a challenge, I think, to make good stories. Because as independent filmmakers, we can't compete with the special effects, with the name actors and so on that they have in Hollywood. So I think I would encourage parents to encourage their children to write, to immerse themselves in good literature, to immerse themselves in good film, to start imitating that. And working in the film industry is maybe a good way to get an idea of the whole experience of working on a set, but in the long term, it doesn't really equip you any better to become a filmmaker. If anything, it intimidates you because you then think, there's no way I could do this. Luckily for myself, I started the other way, where nobody told me the right way to do it, so I did it on my own. And then when I saw how it's supposed to be done, I thought, my goodness, I can't do that. So I would say, I mean, the first major feature film I worked on was The Matrix for a few days in Australia, and you're a tiny cog in this big wheel of a machine of the film, and your actual contribution is very, very small. And in the end, like I said, it might be a film which you wouldn't watch, you know, or you wouldn't let your children watch. So yeah, that's the long answer, but there's no easy way for a trainee in a position on a film set to have any sort of say in a film other than to just not take the job. And that's why I think start a business or have a secure job on the side, because you're going to need it. You're not going to have regular work in film. I really believe, and in my case, I started a business and I did videos on the side, and that's why I didn't have to work all the time in film. But a lot of people can't. They have to take every single film that comes, or they don't eat.
My stepson went to Emily Carr, got his degree in animation, and found exactly what you found, that the market is totally flooded. Now he's working for a small graphic design company that does a little bit of animation every year just to keep his fingers in it. Any advice that I can give him in that area?
Does he just do animation, or does he do any other kind of media, website design, anything like that?
No, animation and graphic design is really the only areas of his focus.
Well, does he, and he works for a company. I would try to, and I've been in that situation, I would try to diversify. I would try to not only do design and animation, but try to do web design. Try to connect with universities and colleges. The University of Alberta has been a real, it's been sort of my bread and butter for many years, to be honest. There's a huge movement now to converting courses to online delivery, and for years I did Flash, web development, animation, and those are things I taught myself because that's how I got work. And by diversifying my skills as much as possible, I was able to keep myself from being pushed out of those positions. By connecting with, and we can talk later, but I think by perhaps starting his own company and looking for clients outside of the country. Nowadays, through sites like Elance or freelancer.com, we're no longer constrained to subcontracting to people in town. We can hire people anywhere. So I think that would be a good opportunity to sort of branch out on his own, but I would encourage trying to expand his skill sets and try to connect with government institutions, because it's hard for them to fire you there. You know, if you can get in at the university or a college supporting their e-learning development, it's a great way for a designer to have sort of reliable income, whereas the corporate commercial market is hit and miss depending on the business. So that's the way it worked for me, and I could perhaps connect him with a few people I know at the university as well, if you're interested.
Hi, Eric. I just want to say I heard you speak many years ago when you were just starting out and you were pretty green. I want to congratulate you on what you've achieved. I have two questions. One is Relativity Media, a production company. They've been putting out these movies that are really relative. It's an interesting trend and how they blur truth. And secondly is The Passion of the Christ. What were you doing when that film came out, and what are your comments on, Mel Gibson, of course, everybody wonders what happened there, but just those two questions. Relativity Media, have you heard of them, and The Passion? Thank you.
Okay, I've heard of Relativity Media. I think if we look at the history of film, I wonder, and it's a good debate maybe for another time about whether audiences have changed or not. I don't think they have. I mean, if you try to imagine today MGM releasing Ben-Hur, or if you imagine a movie on Our Lady of Fatima being nominated for 8 Oscars, winning 4, 20th Century Fox distributing it, it sounds out of reach, but The Passion of the Christ changed a lot of things for people in that it reminded them that people are actually, it's profitable to make films that have Christian values and Christian messages. The film executives in the studio system aren't interested in story, they're interested in statistics. If a movie has sold well, they'll create a sequel. Until that stops selling well, they'll keep doing it. And so the independent film world is finding a footing in different areas. And The Passion was self-financed by Mel Gibson. And after the Passion of the Christ was distributed and it made a fortune for him, the studios realized there's a market for this. In reality, I don't think people have changed in terms of what they want to see. It's just that they consume whatever they're given. And if you're given junk food, you eat junk food. And so I don't have much more to say on that. I think The Passion of the Christ was a meaningful film for me because of where it came from and because of the fact that it was, to me, an act of contrition of Mel Gibson's. It wasn't meant to change the world, it was meant to change himself. And the fallout that's come from that and his life since then, to me, is just evidence that the devil's alive and well. Yeah. Thank you.